Hey guys, it's your boy UnEeVeN. Today, for a video, I thought that I would go over, out of all the devices that I've used for competitive and for online play, which devices are truly the best and have the best performance, and which ones have the worst.
Team Cloud9! Look at UnEeVeN, he's up out of his seat.
Starting off the list this is kind of more of a wild card category, and this is because these devices are not actually allowed in competitive play and therefore are never going to be used by professionals, so they kind of have their own category, and this is iPads. iPads are by far the best devices to use for PUBG Mobile in terms of casual play and in terms of just strictly what'll get you the best performance to outtrade people. There's many reasons for this, mainly the touch sensitivity. For some reason on the latest iPad Pro 2019, which is the one that I used before, is just much better, which allows for much cleaner and crisper close range and long range. Large devices allows you to really easily control recoil. Obviously there's no lag whatsoever because it has much faster processors. Also, not to mention that the big screen just makes it easier to spot enemies in general, which can be a big advantage. But we're not going to include those in the top list simply because it's not allowed for competitive. Starting off this list as the least favorite phone that I used for competitive play or PUBG Mobile in general, the LG G8X ThinQ. This is the phone that we used for ESL Atlanta, and this was my least favorite for a couple reasons. Obviously, keep in mind that this is a list of very high-end devices, so this might be one of those devices that actually would be on the better end for some of you, but in terms of the best devices, this is the lowest on my list. It's essentially the opposite of an iPad, very small and very, very bad touch latency, which made it very difficult for close and long range. You know, the delay between your swipe and the action in game can screw you up in a lot of different ways and makes it a lot more difficult to control these things. There was also a lot of skipped frames, so that means kind of like a sort of stutter and lag to the game because of the lower end specs of the device, which made controlling recoil and long distance a lot harder, and as well as close range. And just in general the gyroscope didn't feel as good as some of the higher end devices that we can use, so my performance on it was pretty weak. The next phone on this list is going to be the Galaxy S10 Plus. This was the one that was featured in the PUBG Mobile Saudi Arabia Star Challenge World Cup. This device was considerably better than the LG G8X ThinQ in my opinion, but still was one of the lower end devices in terms of competitive play. The touch latency was a lot better, as well as the gyroscope felt a lot better than the LG, but for some reason the Galaxy S10 Plus, mine specifically, had very bad frame lag issues in the Star Challenge World Cup. That caused me to put this a little bit lower down on the list, even though it still got better touch latency and gyroscope than the last phone. The next phone that I want to talk about is the Galaxy Note 9. This was the one that we used at DreamHack Dallas, which was my first ever LAN. This is one of the more decent devices that you can purchase in terms of the Android category. It's similar to the Galaxy S10 Plus in terms of the touch latency and the gyroscope sensitivities. You know, the gyros have little inconsistencies here and there, and the touch is considerably higher than other devices, but the performance in terms of like lag and FPS was very consistent. That's one of the most important parts for devices. Touch latency and gyro sensitivity, that's something that you can adapt to, and it does have disadvantages, but it's still a pretty well-off device in terms of those things, and had a pretty good performance as long as you get used to the kind of delayed sensitivities. Alright, this phone is the Vivo Nex 3. Now this is the top of the line in terms of Android devices. It's not quite my number one, and I'll explain that in a second, and it's quite a controversial opinion actually when talking to the other pros that compete in the same tournaments as me, but this device is nearly impeccable. Performance in terms of FPS and all that was amazing. It never has any problems with that. The touch sensitivity was the best, one of the best in terms of Androids. Easy to get a hold of and, you know, to adapt to it. The most consistent gyroscope and consistent touch sensitivity, so that there was no sudden skips or accelerations that some of the other devices might experience. The only thing that I noticed and that I really brings it down for me on the list is the gyroscope had this sort of tendency to trail. What I mean by that is when you're aiming at things in long range and you use the gyroscope to aim left and right, the movement that you do on your phone kind of continued to peter off a little bit. And it seemed to, you know, so if you do one sharp movement to the left, it kind of just continued, and it threw off my aim for long range fights, especially DMRs. And long range fights are really crucial in a tournament like PMCO. But other than that, one of the best Android phones you can get. Now we move on to the iPhones. I've already explained the differences between Androids and iPhones, and explained that iPhone is the far superior device, and that buying an iPhone, unless it's a really old one, is almost always going to be better than the Androids. I've used 2 iPhones, so those are the only ones that I'm going to be able to compare, and that is the iPhone 11 Pro Max and the iPhone XS Max. So me personally, and this is a controversial opinion as well, I use the iPhone XS Max as my daily use, and this might be kind of a weird, opinion that not a lot of people share, but obviously, the iPhone 11 Pro Max is the newest generation. It should have the best specs, and that is true. But the performance is essentially the same because it's lossless. Neither the XS Max nor the 11 Pro Max lag in any situation. So the technical specs don't change it that much. But what does change it is the gyroscope and the touch sensitivity. For some reason, I bought the 11 Pro Max as an upgrade to my XS Max, but I just could not really, as soon as I opened PUBG, the touch sensitivity and the gyroscope sensitivity felt completely wrong. And this is something that I could get used to, but the gyro just didn't feel as accurate for some reason. And PMCO was about to start, and so I didn't feel like completely relearning a whole new device and getting used to new touch sensitivities and gyroscope sensitivities. So I just stuck with the old one, and I have no problems with my iPhone XS Max. And every time I use my 11 Pro Max, for some reason, it's just very uncomfortable. But I know a lot of pros that have put in the work to get used to it and perform really well on it, so either of these devices are really good. Obviously, I would go with the XS Max just because I like that gyroscope and touch sensitivity, and it's the cheaper version. All right, thank you guys for watching. That was my review of the best devices for PUBG Mobile. If you guys want one that has more cheaper, lower-end devices that, kind of applies more to the general population, leave that in the comments, and, I'll get around to doing that stuff. So, yeah, see you guys later.